you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so we have been discussing about Buddhist criteria of knowing what is right and what is wrong, isn't it? How do you choose between what is right and what is wrong? What is good and what is bad? Especially based on these two suttas. One is the Kalama Sutta, the other is the Rahulovada Sutta, right? If you closely read these two suttas, you would see that in the Kalama Sutta, the criteria is given in terms of having some psychological qualities such as lobha, dosa, and moha. These are said to be akusala psychology, unwholesome. Okay, they are called akusala mula, roots of unwholesome or unwholesome roots. So, from this sutta, we come to know that if anyone performs any action based on these psychological aspects, when you are filled with lobha, what is the meaning of lobha in English? How do you translate it in English? Greed, yeah. Dosa, hatred, right? And moha, ignorance, delusion, confused state of mind. Okay, when you are filled with any of these three, when your mind is filled with greed, any action you perform, any decision you take, being influenced by greed, it is not going to bring any good for yourself, not for others, not for anyone, right? Similarly, when your mind is filled with hatred and when you are in a state of confused mind, whatever action you do, they are not going to be beneficial for either yourself or others or both. So basically, this is the teaching that is presented in this sutta. Of course, there are other aspects. I will go through the sutta very quickly again. I prepared some notes here and presented some, Pali passages. I thought that it is important to look at some of the Pali passages and Pali phrases, that would give us a better understanding of Pali text as well as, our understanding of how things are presented in the sutta. And in the Rahulovada Sutta, we find that the Buddha provided the criteria in terms of result. If any action you carry out by your body, speech, or mind, if that action leads to your harm, other people's harm, or harm for both, then you should avoid doing it. And also, it talks about repeated reflection, right? Pachavikitva, kayena kammang katabbang. Bodily action should be done with repeated reflection. Verbal actions should be done with repeated reflection. So this is a kind of a mental training, right? If we have this training, for example, from our childhood, if we can, learn how to be mindful of our action. If we are taught this at our home, at our temples, or whatever places we go for studies, schools, and so on, then it would be very good for our future life, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, let's now go through this summary presentation of Kalama Sutta very first, before going to the other sections, the other suttas. What it says, this could be your practice for Pali as well. Alang hi vo kalama kankitung alang vichikichitung kang kankaniya niye cha pana vothane vichikicha uppanna eta tumhe kalama. Note this word kankitung and then vichikichitung. Kaniya chapana vothane vichikicha uppanna. Uppanna means arisen. Okay, so it says that Buddha is addressing to the Kalamas, saying that you are having doubts with regard to things that you are supposed to have doubt. So it is quite okay to have doubt, because these things appear to be doubtful. In relation to what the Buddha is saying this, you remember? Because when these people from Kesaputta city, the Kalamas, met the Buddha, they said that different ascetics, different recluses visit their place, they propagate different teachings. When they explain their own teachings, they despise other people's teaching, right? They try to convince the people in Kesaputta, the Kalamas, that, accept my teaching, right? You will be benefited by this teaching, and forget about others' teachings. They are not good teachers. Their teachings are not good, right? So when different ascetics coming to their place, explaining just their own teaching and despising other people's teaching, they are confused by that, right? So they expressed to the Buddha that they do not know how to decide which teaching is true. Then the Buddha said, you are doubtful in the subject, in the matter that produce doubt. So it is okay, And then immediately after that, the Buddha went on saying that do not go by oral tradition, by lineage of teaching, by hearsay, by a collection of scriptures, and so on. So these are the Pali expressions. Ma anusasavena. Ma anusasavena. So ma is used here as negative particle. Do not. Okay. Ma anusasavena. Do not go by oral tradition. Anusasava is oral tradition. So something that has been coming down orally for many years, and just because of that particular reason, if you accept that as true, if you follow that, that is not right. That is what it says, right? Ma paramparaya. Something is coming down traditionally, right? In our different countries, in different traditions, we practice different rituals, or we have different belief systems that, you know, that have been transmitted to us generation to generation, right? Our grandparents, they have been doing that. Our parents have been doing that. They taught us to do that, right? And that is how we say that, you know, in our tradition, we do this. This is our traditional, you know, belief, or traditionally we believe to do this rites, this ritual. We have this moral system and so on. But what it says is that just because something is coming down through the tradition, it may not be true. You may question it. But it does not say that it is false. You see? Does not say that it is false. It just says that have a kind of an open mind to examine it. Okay? Not just blindly accept or believe it. Ma iti kiraya. By hearsay. If something is coming down by hearsay. Hearsay, do you understand? What does it mean by hearsay? Hearsay is also, in a way, like oral tradition. In the case of oral tradition, you have particular, you know, teachings or stories that come down orally from people to people. Hearsay is also something like that. People hear from each other. They have no particular proof. You know, they just believe in things that they hear. Ma pitaka sampada nena, by a collection of scriptures. Just because something is written in text, just because something is something you can see on my screen, you do not have to accept it. It also means that, isn't it? Just because something is written on my screen and you are reading that, I am explaining, you do not have to accept it as true. You can use your own brain to, you know, justify, accept or reject. But if you want to pass the exam, you have to remember some of these things. Okay, so that is the requirement. Okay. Ma takka hetu, by logical reasoning. Something is comprehensible or accepted through logic. You know, logically you can accept it because it fits in your logic. Ma naya hetu, by inferential reasoning. Ma vittinijana kantiya, by the acceptance of a view after pondering it. You are thinking about it, and after that, after thinking for some times, this you accept it. Okay. The next one, ma bhabbarupataya, by the seeming acceptance of seeming competence of a speaker. So there may be some speakers, some teachers, or some just speakers can say things in a very convincing way, fluently, with so many different examples, similes, convincingly, so that people accept it as true. Okay, so Buddha is saying that you may question that as well. The last one, ma samano no garoti. Just because you think that this ascetic, this samana is our teacher, is our guru. So whatever he says must be true. I should accept it. Okay, because he is our guru. So this was the guideline given by the Buddha. What did he say after that? He said, Yada tumhe kalama attanava janeyata. Ime dhamma kusala, ime dhamma savajja, ime dhamma vinyogarahita, ime dhamma Samatta samadinna ahitaya dukkaya sangvattanti iti. Ata tumhe kalama pazaheyata. So this passage is very, very important. This is the guideline that he gave. He said when he was saying that just because something is orally transmitted, something is in the tradition, or something matches your logical reasoning and so on, you do not have to accept it. Or somebody said something, you do not have to accept it. You do not also have to reject it immediately. Okay? So this is the criteria he gave. He said that you yourself have to think about it. You yourself have to investigate about it. If these things are akusala, if they are unwholesome, now we have to understand this term akusala. These are the criteria given by the Buddha. Okay? What does it mean by akusala? Unwholesome. What does he refer to when he says unwholesome? Whatever we are thinking, whatever we are doing, whatever we are believing, if they fall into the category of unwholesome, then we should not accept them, because whatever is unwholesome, unskillful, based on lova, dosa, moha, and so on, that are not going to bring good for us, good for you, good for anyone. That is why. So the fundamental thing is that we all want happy life, isn't it? We all want happy life. To establish that happiness, we need to follow a certain path. We need to know how we can guide ourselves, how we can follow the path. That is why the Buddha said that when you think about the teaching or about anything by yourself, and you come to know that these things are unwholesome, and these things are savajja. Savajja means blameworthy. Blameworthy. Blameworthy means, what do you say? Blameable. Okay, not praiseworthy. Okay, and the next it says if you think these things are vinyugarahita. Vinyugarahita. Look at this term here. Vinyugarahita. Meaning despised by the wise person, censured, blamed, or rejected by the wise person. Not just any person, wise person. Okay? Because wise persons are the persons who know what is right, what is wrong. They are the people, they are supposed to give us guidelines, good guidelines. We should not just believe in somebody just because he's an elderly person and then he must be true. It is not like that. He has to be a wise person. A wise person can be a young person as well. He can be a Buddhist, non-Buddhist, black, white, short, tall, it does not matter. You see? So we need to understand what it means by a wise person. Vinyu, in the case of Buddhism, refers to people, noble person, Arya Puggala. Arya Puggala. And there is a reason for that. Why? Yes, Grace want to say something?
Excuse me, teacher. Garahita, what means?
Garahita means rejected by the wise. Rejected or blamed, censured is another word. Censured by the wise. Okay, that means they are not accepted or appreciated by the wise people. For example, if we tell lie, if we steal, if we try to harm somebody else, it is not appreciated by wise people, isn't it? Wise people will tell you that please do not lie, do not tell lie. It is not good for you, not good for others. Do not harm anyone else. Live a very simple life. Do not try to lead, or do not go for a luxurious life. It is not going to bring you happiness. So they would say these kind of things. Why is that? Because they themselves have led a life of that kind, and they experienced peace and happiness in their life. Yeah. Ime dhamma samatta samadinna ahitaya dukkaya sangvattantiti. Ata tumhe kalama pajaheyata. These things, if they are akusala, if they are blameworthy, blamable, if they are censured by the wise, they lead to ahitaya. Ahita. Ahita opposed to hita. Hita means benefit. Ahita, harm, not benefit. They are not leading to anyone's benefit. Dukkaya, they will bring sorrow, suffering. They will be the cause of suffering. This is the verb here, sangvattantiti. So these things, these dhammas will lead to harm and suffering. Therefore, you should pajaheyata, you should avoid. Okay, so this is the criteria given. Venerable Chun, is it clear to you?
Yes, teacher.
Yeah. Okay, then. If something is not clear, you may ask question. We have studied these suttas earlier as well, and you have these suttas already, so you can go through them again and again, make your own notes. So I encourage you to read the suttas and make your own notes, okay, all the time. If you skip later on, you will feel, difficult. If you skip some suttas, the suttas that we have been studying in the class, we are not going to come back to those suttas again. So later on, if we refer to those suttas and some of those teachings, if you have not made your own notes, it would be difficult for you to remember. Okay. Then the Buddha went on to ask the Kalamas, the people of Kesaputta, Tang king manyata Kalama, what do you think, Kalamas? Lobo, and I put within bracket doso and moho as well, because I did not want to copy all the passages. Lobo purisassa ajjattang uppajjamanu uppajjati hitayava ahitayavati ahitaya bhante. So this is a question and this is the answer, right? The Buddha is asking to the Kalamas, when there arises greed in a person, purisassa ajjattang, inside of a person, do you recognize this ending? Just like narassa, genitive case, purisassa, of a person. Ajjattang means inside. Inside of a person, in a person. When there arises loba, greed, uppajjati means arises. Uppajjati, uppajjanti, uppajjasi, uppajjata, uppajjami, uppajjama. So when greed arises in a person, is it for his benefit or harm? That is the question. What do you think? If greed arises in you, is it for your benefit or harm? If you are overcome by greed, for example, you want to buy the latest iPhone, and this thought is prevailing in you, you cannot get rid of this thought. It is controlling your mind. People even steal other people's money, to fulfill their wish. You see? So these people seems to be very, very smart, these kalamas. They say that ahitayavante. If there arises greed or hatred or delusion in your mind, it is not for your benefit, it is for the harm. They accept it. Then the Buddha says, Luddopana ayang kalama purisa puggalo lobena abhibhuto paryadinna chitto panampi hanta adinnampi adiyata paradarampi gacchati musapi bhanati parampi tatattaya samadapeti. Okay, I will separate these passages for the convenience. This is 1, panampi hanta, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It says that when somebody is overcome by greed, when he is fully controlled by greed, lobena abhibhuto, you do not just say that, I have this much of greed. At this point, you are overcome by greed. This thought of greed, is controlling you. Okay? And if somebody is controlled by great hatred and delusion, what do? Panampi hanta, they kill other beings. They kill other beings. Panampi hanta, they destroy others' lives. Adinnampi adiyati, they steal from others. Paradarampi gacchati, they have sexual misconduct. Musapi bhananti, they lie. Parampi tatattaya samadapeti, they do not just do these unwholesome actions themselves, they influence other people also to do that. Let's go and steal. Let's go and kill. You see? They influence other people as well. Yang sa hoti digarattang ahitaya dukkaya ti evang bante. Then the Buddha is asking, this should be then the cause for their harm and suffering for a long time. Long time. Not just for a short time, for a long time. So in Buddhism, we are talking about not just this life, you see. We believe in rebirth, right? We believe that we have had already many lifetimes before this life, and we are going to continue to have many lifetimes unless we become enlightened, unless we become arahant and get rid of this samsaric journey, right? So your thought process, your karmic force, whatever karma you are accumulating, good or bad, the impression, the imprint remains within your thought process. Even when somebody dies, this thought process will continue. There is a momentary continuation. We believe in the momentary existence. Okay? It's like this. It's moving this way. Momentary continuation. If you look at this progress, every moment is different, but it is progressing very fast, like this. You see, there is a kind of a gap, but you cannot really pinpoint. Every moment is becoming the cause for the next moment. Thus, when somebody dies, this cursor here tickling, this one could be his last thought moment, and then when he takes rebirth, next thought moment. So it is called relinking consciousness. This is just to show that when people are heavily influenced by unwholesome thoughts, such as greed, hatred, and delusion, these are just roots of unwholesomeness. There may be other unwholesome psychological aspects, such as envy, jealousy, you see, other kind of evil and bad thoughts. When we have this, we'll involve in many akusala kamma, killing, stealing, going for lying, and also sexual misconduct, and so on. And we will influence others to do that when we are overcome by these thoughts. And then it will cause us suffering for a long period of time. Just because in this lifetime we do not experience suffering, it does not mean that we are done away with that. You may forget it. Okay, I will come back to this aspect again, because later on I put some other text discussing about this issue. Okay, then the Buddha said that tanking maya takalama imedamma kusalava kusalavati, are these things wholesome or unwholesome? Then they said they are unwholesome. Killing is unwholesome, right? Stealing is unwholesome, akusala, unskillful, it is bad action. Lying is unwholesome, and so on. Savajjava anavajjavati, they are blameworthy or praiseworthy. Blameworthy, savajja. Vinyo garahitava, vinyo pasattavati. They are praised by the wise or blamed by the wise. Censured by the wise. Vinyo garahita, they are censured by the wise. Okay. After that, the Buddha is saying, thanking maya takalama, alobo adoso amoho, purisasa jattang pajamanu pajati hitaya vati hitaya vante. Then the Buddha came to the other part. What about if your mind does not have greed, empty of greed, alobo? This a is a particle here. Okay, I can put a dash, then it will be easier. Alobo, amoho, alobo, adoso, amoho. So if you translate literally, it would be non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion, right? Non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. What is non-greed? When you do not have greed, what does it mean? It means you became a generous person, isn't it? You do not have greed. Greed means you want to possess only yourself. You want to have yourself, right? The opposite of greed is you share with others. You share whatever things you have. You share your happiness. You share your knowledge. For example, you just have a good smile and nothing else. If you share your good smile, you make other people happy. You see? Yeah. Non-hatred. What is the opposite of hatred? Hatred means you hate other people, right? You do not like them. But non-hatred means loving kindness, compassion. You include everyone, in your joyous activities. Non-delusion is wisdom. It's opposite of ignorance. Wisdom. Your mind is very clear. Your mind is filled with knowledge. So you exactly know what you are doing. You can decide between good and bad. Okay, then the Buddha is saying, Aluddu panayang kalama purisa puggalo lobena anabhibhuto apariyadinna chitto neva papang hanti na adinnang adiyati na paradharampi gacchati na mosa bhananti parampi tatattaya samadapeti yang sahoti digarattang hitaya sukaya vati. So this is exactly the opposite of the previous statement that the Buddha made, that when you are overcome by greed, hatred and delusion, you will be engaged in akusala activities like killing, stealing and so on, and that will lead you to great harm and suffering. On the contrary, when you are filled with alobha, adosa, amoha, that means loving kindness, generosity and wisdom, you will not engage in unwholesome activities like killing and so on, and then you will have a long-term happiness and benefit. Then this is the same as before. Okay, this part is just question and answer. Look at this part now. Sako so kalama arya savako evam vigata vijjo vigata vyapado asammulho sampajano patissato metta sahagatena karuna sahagatena mudita sahagatena upekka sahagatena cetasa ekang disang paharitva viharati tata dutiyang tata tatiyang tata chatuttang iti uddamado tiriyang sabbadi sabbattathaya sabbavantang lokang metta sahagatena, and here you can put karuna sahagatena, mudita sahagatena, upekka sahagatena, cetasa vipulena mahaggatena, appamanena, averena, abhyapajjena, paritva viharati. This is a very important passage here. Here, the first thing to note is this term, Arya Savako. Okay.